Okay, we're absolutely thrilled here today at the Royal Aeronautical Society to have ESA Astronaut Tim Peake HonFRAeS, who has spent a few minutes from his incredibly packed schedule to answer a few questions ahead of his sellout lecture about his mission to the International Space Station tonight at 4 Hamilton Place. Tim, welcome to the RAeS.
Thank you, Tim.
You touched down it in June 2016, so are there any physical effects of spaceflight still with you? I'm thinking of kind of things like blurred vision or unsteadiness or things like that have implications for long-term spaceflight?
Yeah, so the medical conditions that are still ongoing are bone density loss. Now, I didn't lose that much, about 2% overall, but it will probably take a full 2 years to recover that 2%. But it's quite remarkable that we're actually now in a position where we're recovering back to pre-launch levels. 20 years ago, that wasn't the case. Cosmonauts on long-duration missions were losing 20% bone mineral density, which you would never recover. So actually it shows how much progress we've made, how far we've come in understanding the processes behind the bone mineral density loss and how we can actually counter that on board the space station to prevent it from happening.
And countering is a question of just more exercise?
It's not so much more exercise. In the beginning we started just doing more exercise. Let's do exercise and that'll help, which it did. But we haven't got so much time. We don't want to waste too much crew time just doing exercise. So we've become a lot smarter in understanding what exercises you need to do and realizing that it's the muscle ligament bone interaction that creates the bone growth. So it's doing specific exercises targeting specific areas of the body.
Okay, and while you were up there, what was the most important science you conducted while you were on the ISS?
Very hard question to answer because we did about 300 experiments during our 6 months in space. Every PI would say their experiment was the most important. And by the time you go through the process, the peer review of getting an experiment on board the International Space Station, it's an important experiment. There's nothing going on up there that isn't important. In terms of some of the experiments I think will have the biggest impact, I do think a lot of the pharmaceutical research we're doing right now is fascinating. Growing protein crystals in space, using those clean, large, pure crystals that you simply cannot grow here on Earth, using those crystals to understand disease-causing proteins and then being able to create the drugs that will counter those diseases is fantastic, phenomenal research. So that's some areas very exciting. In terms of coming from a test pilot background as well, I'm really excited by some of the metal alloys that we're investigating using, for example, the European Space Agency, the electromagnetic levitator, where we're understanding about titanium aluminides, for example, and how we can use them to make lighter, stronger engine turbine blades, which will help to improve efficiencies back here on Earth.
Obviously, mission highlight as well was doing a spacewalk, being outside there. What was it like being out there in the void? Did you have any kind of sort of last-minute nerves of what am I doing out here?
I had nerves before going onto a spacewalk. I think most astronauts will at some point. I mean, you're embarking on something that is quite special, going out into the vacuum of space. But I have to say, all apprehension just completely disappeared the moment we started depressurizing the airlock. It really was just get down to work, and it was one of those things that I felt so relieved to be finally, after all the training, the years of hard work that had gone into it, finally to be able to get on with the job in hand. And you're very, very busy. I mean, there's no room to think of anything except exactly what you're doing right now and to run through that spacewalk as best as you can.
And as a test pilot, you conducted your work in relative obscurity. I mean, did you expect this level of global media and public attention? Did ESA training cover sort of Tim mania and how to handle it?
To the best of their ability, yes. It's very hard to train for that. We do have PR media training during basic training, astronaut basic training, that helps you to prepare. But I have to say, really, by the time you fly to space, the best training is on-the-job training. By the time you fly to space, you've been involved in a number of media interviews and presentations, etc. And nothing can really prepare you for the impact coming back. I know, for example, my colleague Thomas Pesquet will be feeling that right now in France. You know, he's an absolute hero, and he's going on a post-flight tour, and he's very, very busy. But I have to say, it's an area I wasn't particularly comfortable with, coming from a military background. But you're also an ambassador for space, and it's part of your job. The two go hand in hand. You cannot be an astronaut and not be expected to have a high public profile. So it's very much part of the job, and it's one I've embraced.
And now you're back on Earth. What's your current day job? What does that entail?
Yes, the current day job is really it's the lofty title of head of astronaut team. So to put that in perspective, at the European Space Agency, we have currently 10 active astronauts. Paolo Nespoli from Italy, he's on board right now. I mentioned Thomas just got back. Alex Guest from Germany, he launches next June. So we have a very active flight regime, probably about 1 flight per year. And I am managing the 10 active astronauts and looking after all the support we give them, whether they're training, whether they're on board the space station, or whether they've just come back from their mission.
And in terms of the future for your next mission, your next spaceship, when do you think you might expect to fly another mission to the ISS, or possibly even on another kind of vehicle?
It's a good question. The good news is that the international partners have agreed the space station will be extended to 2024, and we're going to increase with commercial crew coming online fairly soon with Boeing and SpaceX. That will enable 4 seats to the space station plus the 3 seats on the Soyuz, which gives us a nice crew of 7. So we'll increase the permanent crew from 6 to 7. So there'll be more opportunities for astronaut flights as well. So the short answer is that me and the other active astronauts in the core will all get the chance for a second mission to the space station by 2024. But exactly when that's going to be, I don't know.
Okay. And you talk about sort of your day job. I mean, outreach and STEM seems to be a big part of your job. You're here today talking to the RAeS Cool Aeronautics outreach initiative. How much time do you spend on this on sort of average compared to the sort of training and the kind of astronaut operational work you might be involved with?
Yeah, so it's a very busy schedule, and as I mentioned, most of my time is spent doing my normal day job of being the head of the astronaut team. So I get 2 days per month for outreach and PR. That's it.
So we're lucky to have you today. What's your opinion of, you talked about commercialisation of space, so what's your opinion of the space tourists or space adventurers? Seeing a lot of interest in that might, say, pay for a trip around the moon. Do you think there's anything worthwhile to be gained from that, or any science that might come back?
So I think that what's worthwhile about these ventures is, the companies that are providing these services or looking to provide these services, they're at the absolute cutting edge of technology. When you think of the environment, for example, Virgin Galactic and X-Core, when you think of the environment, the flight regime that they're looking at putting their vehicle through, from 100 kilometers up into space and then to 4 minutes of weightlessness and to fall back, that's really an area that we haven't explored that much. They are, cutting edge areas of technology. Going to the moon, whether it's astronauts, whether it's spaceflight participants, research scientists, whatever you want to call them, in order to do these missions, we are basically building components that are helping reduce the cost of access to space and actually helping the national space agencies to progress with their missions as well. I think we're going to see more public-private partnerships with space exploration. It won't just be a case of the national space agencies. It'll be when we go to the moon and when we go to Mars, you'll have the national space agencies in big international partnerships, and commercial companies will be very much included in that partnership.
I mean, talking of space agencies, in a relatively short period of time, the UK has gone from just sort of satellites and services to a British ESA astronaut to we're set to open an EVA training pool and possibly planning a spaceport. Where do you see Britain's future in space?
I see Britain as having a very active role and a very bright future in space. We've had a fantastic space industry for a number of years. It's been a hidden success story for many years, and now more recently it's become more publicly known about what we're doing. You mentioned the activities we're involved in there. We're world leaders in some areas such as telecommunications, in small satellite production, for example, in rover technology. Airbus are the prime builders for the next Mars rover that European Space Agency is going to put onto Mars. So we have these fantastic industries and an incredible workforce that is producing this. So I think we have a very important role to play in the future. And
obviously you're the flagship in this, but do you think that there's been do you perceive there might have been a fundamental shift in how young people in the UK see space in this country, stemming from talking to somebody who's actually been there?
I hope so. That was certainly the intention of Mission Principia, is we wanted to use this wonderful opportunity we had, and they don't come around very often. We wanted to use the opportunity to the best of our ability to reach out to the younger generation. We know that we have a huge STEM skills gap shortage in the UK that we're trying to address. So we wanted to reach out to those people to bring space closer and to say, look, there is an awful lot happening in the UK. These are the activities you can get involved in. If you're interested in science, if you're interested in space, in exploration, then these are the kind of careers that you can have.
Yeah. And just more generally, I mean, what advice have other veteran astronauts perhaps given you that have stuck with you about obviously flying in space, but also about the job generally? Is there any advice that sticks with you?
I mean, Helen Sharman was always, it was great to talk to her before the mission, and we've chatted on many occasions, and she said quite rightly, don't forget to just take some time to actually absorb what it is you're doing. And I think that's very important, especially on a shorter duration mission, such as the Andreas Mogensen, for example. Your workload is so high for that period of time. It's nice to just be able to take a few minutes every day and maybe go to the cupola window and just take some time for yourself to appreciate, the position you're in and what you're seeing.
What's the thing you miss the most then from your mission?
The thing I miss the most, without a doubt, is the view of planet Earth. And I'm sure that if I had the chance to go back again, that would be one of the first things I would do, would be to grab a camera and go to the window.
Okay. And my final question, and this was also a question to Elon Musk when he was here. Favourite fictional spaceship?
Favourite fictional spaceship?
Yes.
Gosh, I mean,
this could lose you to a lot of fans.
I'm a huge Star Wars fan, also Star Trek as well, watched a lot of that. So fictional spaceship, I'm going to go with, let's go with the Enterprise.
Ooh, okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Tim Peake, thank you very much.